Welcome everyone, this is On Just Restart, and this time I want to talk about why it is likely that if we get a trailer at the Game Awards 2021 for the sequel to Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, that there will be a title reveal. No more will we call it Breath of the Wild 2, or as Nintendo touts it, the sequel to Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. No more will that mouthful be necessary. Another mouthful instead will be necessary, because then we'll finally know what it's going to be. That's what I think. I think it's likely. So in this video we're going to be talking about why it is likely at Game Awards 2021, if Breath of the Wild 2 is shown off, they will give us a reveal of the full title of the game. Now before we jump into things, let me very quickly talk about my social media. You may see a few different things here on screen. You can check that all out. It is linked in the description below. And of course, if you like what you're seeing here, you can subscribe. So firstly, let's talk about why Nintendo hasn't given us a title yet. The game has been in development since the end of 2017. We had its initial sort of trailer teaser at E3 2019, and just at E3 2021 we got an update trailer on the game, but still no title reveal quite yet. Why is Nintendo waiting so long? Well, back at around E3 time, Video Games Chronicle got to talking with Bill Trinen, the marketing manager at Nintendo of America, and this is what he said. As for why we're holding back on the name, you'll just have to stay tuned, because obviously Zelda names are kind of important. Those subtitles, they start to give little bits of hints about maybe what's going to happen. So basically, Bill Trinen is telling us that they just don't want to spoil things quite yet. They want to keep their lips sealed. They want to be very secretive about this game. They don't really want to divulge too much about what's so special about this game. And that's an exciting concept. Just that there's so much they're holding back about this. And obviously they should. They don't want to reveal everything too soon. But this game is a sequel to Breath of the Wild. And when I say that, what I'm getting at here is that they started development back in 2017, shortly after Breath of the Wild 1. They already had a foundation there. They're using basically the same engine, obviously probably expanding upon it, but they have that foundation there, and it's in the same world. And yet, here we are, 4 years later, and we still know very little about the game, and the game, in my opinion, is likely coming out towards the end of 2022. We'll see, but the point is, this game has a very, very long development cycle, even though it's a direct sequel, using Breath of the Wild as a base. What that suggests is that there's going to be a lot of content here, there's going to be a lot of depth to this game, and there's going to be some elements here that could be very exciting. What has the Zelda team been up to for this long that has led to such a long amount of development time, even with this foundation? That's a big secret, and perhaps the title will be indicative of that to some extent here. Which brings me to the Game Awards and a potential update on the game. Maybe we finally get an update for Breath of the Wild 2 at the Game Awards. Why is this likely? Well, one, the game is coming out next year, and the updates for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate are now complete. There will be no more updates for Smash Ultimate, it is done. And over the last half decade or so, or a little bit more than that, Nintendo's pretty much had a very consistent presence at the Game Awards, and usually it's been either Breath of the Wild or it's been Smash Bros. Smash Bros. Is done. The next big Zelda game is around the corner, the sequel to Breath of the Wild. So the best time to probably give us information on the game is now, or December 9th at the Game Awards. We're likely to get another trailer, and there are others already suggesting this. For example, Samus Hunters put out a little bit of a teaser that there's going to be some sort of Zelda news at the Game Awards. I agree. It's probably going to be Breath of the Wild 2. That is Nintendo's big game for 2022. We've seen Nintendo reaffirm the game is coming out in 2022 from their Q&As and investor meetings and such. Even recently, Nintendo put out this little tweet showing off games for 2022 and includes the sequel to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. And what you may notice, what's interesting about this image, every other game there has like an actual title, yet the sequel to Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is just a sentence. We don't have the full name yet. Sooner or later, they're going to have to start providing a name, because it's probably going to be a lot easier to market the game. Which brings me to one of my bigger points here. they're going to start that big marketing campaign for Breath of the Wild 2, and if they're going to be doing that, they're going to need something more than a long sentence like that looks kind of awkward and out of place compared to everything else. They want to market this. So we're going to need a title drop. We're going to need to know what this game is called pretty soon if Nintendo's going to be hyping things up for this game throughout 2022. So the Game Awards is a likely candidate for that because we're likely going to get some sort of Zelda news, I would say, and if we do, they're probably going to start that big marketing campaign for Breath of the Wild 2, and with that campaign, they will likely need to have given us some sort of official name or logo for this game. But going a little bit beyond that, let's talk about the history of other Zelda games and title drops for them. So for Skyward Sword, we had this weird little concept art for a few years. We didn't have much to go on, but eventually, once Nintendo gave us a trailer for Skyward Sword, they gave us a name. That was it. It was an immediate thing. There was no prior trailer suggesting something but not giving us really a name. That was it. They gave us Skyward Sword and there we went. But then for Twilight Princess, if we go back to E3 2004 when it was initially shown off, there was no title there. We had to wait a whole other year for the next E3, E3 2005, and there we got a title. Usually we don't wait this long to get title drops for Zelda games. Nintendo's waiting a lot longer for Breath of the Wild 2 than pretty much any other Zelda game before it. What's different this time around? Well, one thing that I think is different is COVID. COVID has certainly impacted things, and that should also explain in part why the development time for this game has been so much longer than anticipated because, well, COVID surely impacted things to some extent. But at the same time, Nintendo gave us a pretty significant trailer for Breath of the Wild 2 at E3 2019. And then they waited 2 whole years after that to give us another trailer. But with that second trailer, they finally gave us a release year, 2022. And I think the reason they waited 2 whole years from the first trailer to give us an idea of the release timing was because Nintendo wants to be careful in terms of not setting us up for disappointment here. They do not want to publicly announce another delay. That's why they waited so long until they were sure when the game would be coming out. But what about that third trailer? What are they going to give us for the third trailer? The first trailer simply announced its development. The second trailer gave us a release year. Perhaps that third trailer needs to give us something significant as well, and the last significant thing I would say would be the title drop. So that kind of makes sense. Not to mention when we look at Breath of the Wild, with Breath of the Wild, the initial trailer came out at E3 2014, and they said it was coming out 2015, and obviously that was wrong. But then we waited till the Game Awards 2014 to get an idea of some of the gameplay. But then we had to wait a whole other year until November 2015, basically, where there was an Nintendo Direct where they gave us another trailer, but it was a trailer for Twilight Princess HD that just had a couple extra seconds teasing Zelda U. And then at E3 2016, 2 years after the initial reveal, we finally got the title drop for Breath of the Wild. So for Breath of the Wild, it took Nintendo 2 whole years to give us a title reveal. With Breath of the Wild 2, we're looking at something even longer, but perhaps if you factor COVID into this scenario and Nintendo being more careful about not wanting to publicly delay the game and such, the Game Awards being 2.5 years after its initial reveal at E3 2019, I think that might be the right time to do it. I think it would be strange for Nintendo to provide us a whole other trailer for Breath of the Wild 2 and not give us a title drop. I think now is the time. I think now they're going to start to build up that marketing. If they're going to be showing it off the Game Awards, it's because they want this game to be shown off to a very, very large audience. This is the prime time to show it off, which is why there's a history of showing off Breath of the Wild at the Game Awards. And giving us a title drop, I think, would be ideal. I think it's likely. But what do you guys think? Do you guys think it's likely that we'll finally be getting a title drop at the Game Awards? And if so, what kind of title could this be? To what Bill Trennan is here saying is this title is going to have some significance. It's going to tell us something about the game, give us some hint, which is exciting for when we finally do see it, but what could it be? Do we have enough hints already from the first 2 trailers to surmise what this title is going to be? I doubt it, because every title for a Zelda game is seemingly pretty hard to predict until they actually give it to us, but maybe you guys have some pretty cool ideas. So let me know in the comments below. Anyways, everyone, this is On Just Restart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care.